Consciousness only. We have extensively distinguished the characteristics of the three consciousnesses, capable of transforming as the supports of the two parts that are transformed from them. How must we understand that the metaphorical self and dharmas that are transformations based on consciousness are not separate realities, and consequently that all are consciousness only? The verses of Vasubandhu say, the various consciousnesses transform as imagination and the imagined. As a result of this, all these are non-existent. Therefore all are consciousness only.
The treatise says that the various consciousnesses means the previously discussed three transforming consciousnesses and their mental activities. The term transform is established because all are able to transform to resemble the two parts that are seeing, darsana, and seen, nimitta. That which transforms into the seeing part is called imagination, because it is able to grasp images. That which transforms into the seen part is called the imagined, because it is grasped by the seeing part. As a result of this correct principle, all real selves and dharmas definitely do not exist apart from what has been transformed from consciousness, because there is not a separate thing apart from the grasping and the grasped, because there are no real things apart from these two characteristics. Therefore no conditioned or unconditioned dharmas, whether real or metaphorical, exist apart from consciousness.
The word only denies real things apart from consciousness, but it does not deny such dharmas as mental activities, etc., that are not apart from consciousness. Alternately, transforms means that internal consciousnesses transform to resemble selves and dharmas as characteristics of external objects. This transformation is called imagination, because its self-nature is false imagination, that is, mind and mental activities of the three realms. Objects that are grasped by it are the imagined, which are the falsely imagined natures of real selves and dharmas. Because imagination transforms to resemble external objects, characteristics of false selves and dharmas as the imagined natures of real selves and dharmas are definitely all non-existent, because they have been denied, as realities, by former quotations from teachings and by reason. Therefore all are consciousness only, because the existence of false imagination, abhita parakalpa, is commonly accepted by all schools. The word only does not deny dharmas that are not apart from consciousness, therefore, real emptiness, etc., are by nature existent. Consequently, the two extremes of eternalism and annihilationism are avoided, and the meaning of consciousness only is demonstrated as conforming to the middle way.
1. Proofs of consciousness only. It is asked, as a result of what teachings and reasoning is the principle of consciousness only demonstrated? We reply. Have we not already discussed it? It is answered, only incompletely. You do not demonstrate your own principle by refuting another's principle. You must again explain carefully and demonstrate the teachings and reasoning. According to what the Dasabhimika Sutra says, the three realms are mind only. Also, the Samdhinirmocana Sutra says, objects are only manifestations of consciousness. Also, the Lankavataira Sitra says, none of the dharmas is apart from mind. Also, the Vimalakirti-nirdesa Sutra says, sentient beings become impure or pure through mind. It also is said, Bodhisattvas who are provided with the four knowledges can, in accordance with awakening, enter the truth of consciousness only. And objectlessness.
The four knowledges are, first, knowledge of images of different consciousnesses, virudavijnanamitajurna. That is, the same thing perceived by ghosts, humans, celestials, etc., is different for each in accordance with differences of karma. If objects really exist, how can this be possible? The second is knowledge of consciousness without real objects and lambanavijnanajnana. That is, one takes as objects such things as past, future, dream objects, images, etc., that do not really exist but that are possible as manifestations of consciousness. Since these objects are non-existent, so must others be. Third, knowledge that of all beings must be naturally without error anabhasamskara viparita jnana. That is, if the knowledge of the ignorant attained real objects, they must naturally achieve errorlessness and obtain liberation without effort.
Fourth, the knowledge of change, of objects, in accordance with the triple knowledge, Trivijnanyavartika jnana. The first, of the three knowledges, is the knowledge of change, of objects. Following the knowledge of one who has mastery, of mind, Vasubandhu. That is, he who has realized mastery of mind can transform earth into gold, etc., at will. If objects really exist, how can they be transformed? The second, of the three, is the knowledge of change of objects, following the knowledge of one with clear perception, That is, he who achieves the superior samadhis and cultivates contemplation of dharmas contemplates one object, and a multitude of characteristics, such as origination and cessation, appear before him. If these objects are real, how can they be mentally transformed? The third, knowledge, is the knowledge of change, of objects, following non-discriminative knowledge, That is, when one generates and realizes true, non-discriminative knowledge, none of the characteristics of objects appears. If objects really exist, how is it possible for them not to appear?
The Bodhisattva who achieves these four knowledges definitely is enlightened in and penetrates the principle of consciousness only. Also, a verse of the Lankavataira Sutra says, "None of the objects of mind, thought, and consciousness is separate from its own mental nature. Therefore, I declare that all things are consciousness only, there is nothing else." Proofs in these holy teachings are numerous.
2. Reasoning. The commonly agreed upon visual consciousness, etc., do not take as objects form, etc., that is separate from themselves, because each is one of the five, like the others. The other, mental consciousness, because it is a consciousness like visual consciousness, etc., also does not take as direct objects dharmas that are separate from itself. These direct objects are definitely not separate from these 6 consciousnesses, because they are one of the 2 parts of consciousness, like the seeing part, that can take objects. They are definitely not separate from mind and mental activities, because they are objective dharmas, like associated dharmas. These correct reasons and proofs are numerous, and therefore we must deeply believe and accept the truth of consciousness only. Self and dharmas do not exist, emptiness and consciousness are not non-existent. These are, respectively, separate from existence and separate from non-existence, and therefore, our teaching conforms to the middle way. As a result of this, Maitreya has 2 verses in the Madhyanta Vibhaga.
False imagination exists. The duality in it does not exist. In it, there is only emptiness. In that, there is also this imagination. Therefore, I declare that all dharmas are neither empty nor not empty. Because of existence, non-existence, and existence, this conforms to the middle way. These verses speak on the basis of only defiled dependence on others, paratantra, but in reality there is also a pure part of the dependent on others.
3. 9 objections. Objection: if there is only internal consciousness that occurs resembling external objects, how is that we see that the places, times, bodies, and functions of worldly sentient and insentient beings are, sometimes, determinate and, sometimes, indeterminate? We reply, we must dispel this doubt by comparison with dream objects, which have the same characteristics but are not real external things, etc. Objection: for what reason did the world-honored one speak of 12 sense bases? We reply, these are transformations based on consciousness, not separate, real entities. In order to introduce the emptiness of the person, Pujjala, he spoke of the 6 double dharmas, i.e., eye and visual objects, ears and sounds, etc., just as he spoke of continuous sentience in order to deny the false view of annihilation. In order to introduce the emptiness of dharmas, he spoke later of consciousness only, because it makes us realize that external dharmas are also non-existent.
Objection: is not the nature of this consciousness only also empty? We reply, no. They ask, why? We reply, because it is not to be grasped. We speak of the emptiness of dharmas on the basis that the falsely grasped real dharmas that are transformations of consciousness are in reality ungraspable, anupalabdha. We are not speaking of the emptiness of dharmas that is the nature of the ineffable consciousness only that is realized by correct knowledge. If this consciousness, only, does not exist, then there is no relative truth and, because there is no relative truth, there also is no ultimate truth, because ultimate truth and relative truth are established through mutual dependence. He who rejects the two truths wrongly grasps emptiness, and the Buddhas have said that such a one is incurable. It should be understood that various dharmas are empty and not empty, and that is why Maitreya uttered the previous two verses.
Objection: if the material sense bases, ripajayatana, are in substance consciousness, why does consciousness evolve resembling characteristics of form, manifesting a homogeneous, firm, stable series? We reply, because they originate from the power of perfuming energy of names and words, and because form is the supporting sense base for defiled and pure dharmas. If it did not exist, there would be no error, and then there would be no defilement and also no pure dharmas. Therefore the various consciousnesses appear resembling form. As a verse says,
images of confusion and confusion itself must be conceded to be material consciousness and immaterial consciousness, respectively. If the first is lacking, the other is also lacking. Objection: external objects of form, etc., are clearly present and authenticated by visual consciousness, etc. How can that which is acquired through direct perception be rejected as non-existent? We reply, when they are authenticated by direct perception, they are not grasped as being external. Afterwards, the discrimination of thought falsely generates a thought of outside, therefore directly perceived objects are the transformation of the seen part of the consciousnesses themselves, and for that reason it is said that they exist. When form, etc., grasped by mental consciousness as external and real are falsely judged to exist, it is said that they are non-existent. Also, objects of form, etc., are not form but resemble form, and they are not external but seem to be external. They are like objects in dreams and cannot be grasped as being real, external objects.
Objection: if during the waking state forms are all like objects in dreams and not separate from consciousness, then, just as after a dream we awaken and know that it was only mental, why, when we are awake, do we not know that our own material objects are consciousness only? We reply, it is like being in a dream prior to awakening and being incapable of self-understanding. In order to be retrospectively awakened to the dream state, we must reach awakening. You must understand that the objective forms of the awakened state are the same. We are incapable of self-understanding prior to a state of awakening and are capable of being retrospectively awakened, from delusion, when we arrive at true awakening. If we have not acquired true awakening, we are always situated in a dream. That is why the Buddha said that it is the long night of samsara. Consequently, we do not clearly grasp that material objects are consciousness only.
Objection: external form is really non-existent and presumably not the object of internal consciousness. The minds of others really exist, so why are they not also one's own objects of consciousness? We reply, who says that the minds of others are not the objects of one's own consciousness? We just do not say that they are its immediate objects. That is, when a consciousness is born, it is devoid of real function, unlike hands, etc., that immediately grasp external things, or the sun, etc., that spreads its light and immediately illuminates external objects. Consciousness is only said to perceive the minds of others because it is like a mirror in which appear seemingly external objects. It cannot immediately perceive others' minds. What it immediately perceives are its own transformations. Therefore, a scripture says, there is not the slightest dharma that is capable of seizing other dharmas. It is just that when consciousness is born, it appears resembling images and is said to seize things, as with having the minds of others as objects, so with form, etc.
Objection: since there are different objects of others' minds, how can you say that there is consciousness only? We reply, how obstinate! You doubt everything you touch. Does the teaching of consciousness only just speak of a single consciousness? They ask, if that is not so, then what do you mean?
We reply, listen carefully. If there were only a single consciousness, how could there be differences of the 10 directions, ordinary and wise, venerable and base, and cause and results, etc.? Who would preach for whom? How could one seek the Dharma? Therefore the words, consciousness only, have a profound significance. The word consciousness indicates in a general way that all sentient beings are said to have 8 consciousnesses, 6 classes of mental activities, the seen and seeing parts, that are transformations of consciousness, differences of states, and the ultimate reality expressed by the principle of emptiness, because these categories are, respectively, the distinct characteristics of consciousness, associates of consciousness, the 2 transformations of consciousness, their 3 states, and the true nature of the 4 above categories. In this way, the various dharmas are not separate from consciousness and are generally named consciousness. The word only just denies really existing form, etc., that the ignorant grasp as definitely separate from the various consciousnesses. If in this way one knows the meaning of consciousness only, one will be able to be without error, be well provided with equipment, quickly penetrate the emptiness of dharmas, realize supreme awakening, and aid those in the transmigration of samsara. This cannot be achieved by one who totally rejects all things as non-existent. Therefore one must without doubt believe that all is consciousness only.